Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take for the midday week. It's Wednesday, and we're all looking forward to that. Big Market Rebellion Day. As a matter of fact, AJ and I later on this afternoon, right at the close, are going to be going through the 30 stocks. And we said 60 minutes. We're not going to cut back on the stocks. We're going to cut back on time. So AJ's got his work cut out for him. We might do 30 stocks in 30 minutes. Who knows? Then I'm going to have to jump on that fast money report and see how things are going. So yesterday, the roller coaster ride continued, and the ups and downs and the midday and all the rest of it, the shifting around that we've seen constantly, it seems like that just continues. And we're just going to hit this real quick because I think it's very important to always look back to see how that might predict something for the future. But we look at volatility. It was trading in that range, 23 to 25. I'll tell you what, and we bring this up all the time, and I will continue to pound this down because this is why you are here. This is why you're probably watching. You are interested in the derivatives markets, and that's a smart thing because, again, yesterday, almost 40 million contracts trading yesterday. When I look at these volumes, it was 39.7 million. When I look at these volumes, it's absolutely extraordinary. Apple was over a million contracts, Tesla over a million contracts, NEO pushing right up against a million contracts. So it gives you a little sense, but with 40 million contracts and 3 million, a little bit more than that, being eaten up by three stocks, it does show you that there is a broadening going on right now. That's just absolutely incredible how much volume is coming into the derivatives world, the options world that we see all the time. I even wanted to highlight a few things as far as some of the volumes yesterday and where we were seeing a lot of activity. We have GM, we had Ford, we had Bank of America, we had Wells Fargo, we had Intel. We'll hit on that a little bit more. AMD, Facebook. You go through it, there's a lot of different volume shifts that where we were seeing a lot of activity, and in many cases we were seeing some of that unusual activity. We hit energy a lot, and for all the right reasons. Yesterday just shows you once again the run is not over. As a matter of fact, we talked about this going back to the early parts of November, maybe even the late part of October. We started seeing the consistent buying in the energy space, and we've watched the price of crude go from 38 all the way up towards $53, $54 a barrel. So that's been a big run. Yesterday, the run in those beta names, for movement between 7 and 13%, here's what we had yesterday. Occidental, Apache, Marathon, Halliburton, Diamondback, Devon, just to name just a few because there's a lot more than that. But then the materials space also, a lot of activity in there, a lot of great production there. We talk about Cliffs, we talk about Alcoa, Freeport-McMoRan, U.S. Steel, freak show, up about 5% yesterday, and the materials on fire. Financials, the participation we've had there has been great. We looked at Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, all 2% or higher. Really, really nice move. Now, we did talk a little bit about Intel yesterday. Well, I'm going to hold off for that. We're going to do that a little bit later on. We got a couple of unusuals we're going to hit, but before we do, let's look at today. The roller coaster ride, it just continues, this up and down. We actually started the day in the pre-market. We looked like we were going to open down a little bit, nothing big, but about 60 points on the Dow, maybe 40 points on the NASDAQ. Before you know it, we get to the open, we're up 60. We look over at the NASDAQ, that's up 40. That's been a little bit more stable. We've been watching the Dow kind of bounce up and down and up and down, and it's been moving around pretty rapidly. Quickly, we were down 30 points. Now we're back up 30 points. We look over at the NASDAQ, though, it's a little bit more solid, a little bit more strength holding on there. Volatility still trading right around 23s right now. Intel, the story of the day, absolutely Intel. That's up about 10% or thereabouts. It's been up over 10%. The stock was up over $60 a share. And what a really interesting story, because we talked about having recently getting that investor, Dan Loeb, and his firm involved in there and buying, I think they had $1 billion plus invested in Intel. They see what's there, but they also see the missteps. Well, those missteps are getting paid today because Mr. Swan is going to be walking away in the middle part of February. I think it's February 15th. He'll be walking away from that job, and they'll be getting replaced by Mr. Gelsinger, from VMware. So that's going to be a transition that a lot of people are excited about. They felt like there needed to be a change. I was one of those people. I'm a very small person when it comes to the Dan Loebs of the world, but I've been in this name for many, many years, on and off, and mostly on recently, and had a little bit of pain, but that pain has been resolved in a big way as far as this move that we are seeing now. So today, some of the winners yesterday are some of the losers today. I looked over at energy. Early on, we were down almost 1.5% for energy. Actually, it's cut into that pretty nicely. It's now down about 0.5%, but you've got industrials, financials down about 0.5%, materials down a little bit. So you understand, we talk about this a lot, some of these pullbacks, and it's healthy to get a little bit of a pause or a little bit of a pullback, especially after the sprint that we have seen over the last several months for many of these different categories, these sectors that have actually been leading the markets to the upside, and all these different record numbers that we have been seeing. So let's jump to unusual real quick. Intel. Now, Intel is interesting. We had unusual just yesterday. We had the January 29th expiring 58 calls. They were going for 70 cents. Today, they traded well over $3. There was multiple different areas that people could attack. They could whatever strike, but that's the beauty of what we are seeing here. And then we get that reaction that fast and an unbelievable run to the upside. I know that a lot of people have already gotten a hold of me, letting me know how excited they were about that trade. Now we're on to the next one, because you've got to have that discipline. Now you have to have the discipline to make some decisions. When do you want to trim? When do you want to take off a position? All the rest of that. Everybody's risk tolerance is going to be different. So I just would say you have to be consistent on how you want to approach how you're going to deal with the winners and the losers. We all know there's losers along the way as well. So, but this was a great opportunity, because we were looking at something that was an under $1 option. It's trading closer to 70 cents. And this big jump that we had, well over $3 today. I talked to a lot of different people. So depending on your strikes and all the rest of it, a really nice jump. Stock got over 60. It's pulled back a little bit. Last I looked, it was trading just under 58 bucks a share. So we'll see. And obviously it's a long day. We're 1 hour into the day. I got one more interesting one for you, Momo. And the reason I think this one stood out for me today, we got all kinds of different unusuals out there, but the Momo is interesting because of the fact that it just hit yesterday. Stock was trading in the 14s. Now today it's trading, well, it was trading in the 16s. It's kind of pulled back a little bit, but they were buying the January 16 calls, about 4,000 of those, anywhere between 30 cents and $1. Obviously, as they were buying them, the stock started to move to the upside. It's kind of eased back a little bit, but I just like the fact that when we see buyers come day after day after day, and how many times have we talked about in Freeport-McMoRan? How many times have we talked about that in multiple different names, where we just can see that consistency? AMD is another great example, where we've seen the consistency of buyers and buyers and buyers, and they just feel like it's almost relentless. Well, this has just sort of started, but Momo definitely on the move of late. So that's pretty interesting. Social entertainment, Chinese name, of course, which is why, as I've just decided over the last year or so, in these Chinese names, I'm okay being in the options. I'm not so okay being in the stocks. That's just my own personal opinion. So you can have yours and you can do it however you'd like. But obviously the derivatives world is where we mostly sleep. So that's something really exciting. As I was looking through my disclosures today for CNBC, the number of positions on in the option side of what we've got is absolutely what I've got is incredible. How much it is just ballooned up. And I've talked about that before, just so you have an understanding. Why would that happen? Why would I have 20 positions and suddenly I have 40 positions? Well, the volatility coming in, it gives an opportunity, and where we are seeing some of the buying that makes some sense. And obviously we're selective. We don't buy every single unusual that hits on a daily basis. We have on average about 40 plus unusual option hits per day. We're all obviously not going to trade every single one of those. And we move our way through and get very selective throughout the day of which ones are the ones that are best for me. That might be different for you. So really a quick couple of questions, and I think we're going to be hitting this later too, but it looks like we're going to be going live. And so we'll talk about that in terms of YouTube, really exciting Twitter, and that live stream, very similar to John's 3 at 3, will start, it looks like we're shooting for tomorrow. So we'll keep you posted on that. And keep an eye on Twitter for that release. Good morning, Pete. What are you seeing in Zoom? Not a lot. I hadn't seen a lot in Zoom. Somebody's asking about Palantir. I had not seen a lot of paper in that yet, although since we got on here, maybe that's changed. Would you hold or sell COP calls expiring up nicely since recommended a few weeks ago? Never really recommended, just talking about what we're seeing for unusual, but Conoco, I still own those calls, and we've got a little bit of time. And if it's moved enough, trimming is never a bad idea. As a matter of fact, I think it's moved well enough that trimming might be something that should be considered. It's something that everybody's going to have their own sort of set of rules. So I can't set your set of rules for you. I don't understand your risk tolerance. And so I've got my own, but we all know that it's a very disciplined world that we live in here in the options, because there are expiration cycles, and we have to be very knowledgeable about that. What does the CEO change in Intel have to do with the drop in AMD? It's just these reactions, and we see it all the time. Ridiculous reactions to news stories, and maybe even including the fact that we've got a new CEO coming into Intel in a couple of weeks. What sort of time frame are we looking at that we have expectations for the next level of Intel to return to sort of glory? I think it's going to take a little bit of time. You probably do too. That might mean that with this big jump, not only trimming the options, but I'm also long the stock. I've got to make some decisions on that as well. And so sometimes these reactions, I think, are overreactions, both to the upside and the downside. And I think we're seeing a little bit of both probably today. Tesla calls. Not seeing as much today. Obviously, we see Tesla calls every single day. It's always seems like in the top 3 in terms of volume. So very consistently, it sits up in the top 3. But I did not have anything that really jumped out to me today. Bought Twitter calls. Thoughts on the stock? Obviously, the reaction Monday to the stock was something that was pretty aggressive. And I think over time, people will kind of move on from thoughts. It happens all the time. We know that. So I own the stock personally. I got hit. I did not sell out because it moved so much. I had thought about maybe selling the stock, but it had moved down far enough that I didn't feel like that it made any sense anymore. So presently, I still continue to own the stock, and I'm selling calls against that position. Probably a little bit more implied volatility now, so that's a better thing for me as a stock owner as I sell out of the money upside calls. Lastly, are you still in SUM? And then I got to run. Yes, I am in SUM. I did trim. I trimmed twice already, but continue to own some of those calls because that's been an absolute rocket ship. I love the material space, and that one's been great. Last one I will hit because I think it's important because we just talked about the unusual yesterday in Apple. Hi, Pete from Matt C. Any thoughts on Apple heading into earnings? Yeah, I think that the earnings should be very powerful, should be very strong, could be more record earnings, quite frankly, for Apple. That being said, just have the understanding that we've seen that before, and we've seen the reaction where they've sold it before. So that does happen, but I think the overall direction, in my opinion, for Apple continues to be higher. That's why I've owned the stock for as long as I have. That's why I bought it when it's had dips. I've been in this stock, it seems like forever. As a matter of fact, my wife gets a lot of the credit, talked me into this stock way back when I first got into the trading world back in the mid 1990s. And she feels like she is a great trader, and she is. And I appreciate the fact that she nudged me onto that one as well. Folks, have a great day of trading. We'll see you tomorrow. It should be live tomorrow, but check in on the Twitter and we'll let you know. I'll be on the noon show. Then we've got obviously me and AJ at market close, and then fast money as well at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Have a great day of trading.